Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Elixir podcast, where we cover the news of the community and learn from each other. My name is Mark Erickson.
And I'm David Bernheisel.
Let's jump into the news. First up, Elixir 1.19 RC is released. Woohoo! We've been excited about this one. It's been in the works for a while. There's a couple of things that we wanted to highlight. So we know that this is being released, but it isn't released at the moment we're recording. So we're kind of reporting a little bit blind on what they're announcing. Not entirely true. We know it's
clearly stated in the changelog that's published. So
yes. It will probably have a blog post or something that's released along with it, but at the moment that's not out. But we do want to highlight some of the cool stuff that's in this. The new compiler, so there were a number of compiler improvements. It can be up to 4 times faster for large projects. Part of that's removing code loading bottlenecks and parallel compilation of dependencies and lazy loading of modules. What's interesting is José's ElixirConfEU talked about some of this stuff that was coming out in this release. So we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But then the other thing is the type system updates. There's support for maps of any keys. That means, string keys, atom keys, integer keys. You can have maps as a map key. You can go all sorts of crazy with maps. So maps of arbitrary keys, support anonymous functions in the type system, and type checking of protocols and implementations. And in this one, José talks about in his ElixirConf keynote, where they had to change the way the compiler worked, because previously the compiler would run through the code and then after some of that, it would do protocol consolidation. And so it's like an after step. But now if types are part of the protocols, then it has to be done up earlier. So they had to change how the compiler worked.
They're also improving the pretty printing algorithm. I've actually come across this before. Usually when I need to inspect something that's large, you'll notice that, well, you always forget the limit infinity on it, first of all. And when you forget that, you get, and you got a lot of structs in there or maps that are kind of deep, you'll notice that towards the bottom, things get truncated more and more and more. So you just start getting less keys and less keys and less keys, and until it just stops, altogether. So the improvement here is, well, to not do that. It'll still truncate when it needs to, but it won't do it to the effect of where it starts to truncate in the nested way it does. So if you, for example, if you have a list of 10 items and those 10 items each have a depth of 3, before it would start truncating one of those keys in the depth of 3, in item 2, and then item 3 would have even more that's truncated, but not entirely. And then by the time you get to item 8, it's completely truncated. The way they're going to do it now is just show me all the things in items, items 1, 2, and 3, and then the third item will just be completely truncated. So it's just a little bit of an adjustment. And I think that'll be good because typically, I'm looking for that truncated key in that nested mess that I'm getting right before I slap a limit infinity on there. Another thing is about Elixir 1.19 is this will be the first one that they have open chain certification. So when this release does come out, you're going to see the source, the software bill of materials in Cyclone DX or later, and SPDX formats, which will be pretty good. Lovely seeing that. Erlang was also shipping these artifacts as well, so it's great to see Elixir jumping on board. Another improvement is supporting min/2 and max/2 as guards. That's nice, because any functions that you call in a guard have to be very special cased. So allowing for some additional usage in guards functions is really neat. And then the big one, I think it's a big one to me anyway. It's the struct update syntax. So normally if you had a struct update where you'd say, %URI and curly brackets, and you might pass in the struct data and then a pipe and then a key to say, I want to replace the path. So you're saying, assume and enforce that I'm using the URI struct, pass in the existing struct, pipe, and then any keys that I want to replace it with, and it will just give me an updated struct. Well, that is being deprecated in favor of pattern matching on the struct when the variable is defined, and then using the map update syntax where instead of restating the struct name,
Maybe it's because of the type inference. Maybe it's because the pattern match tells us what it is, that you'll just be doing % curly bracket. So you're skipping having to say the struct name there and then just using the struct variable name, and then the rest of it's the same. So the deprecation, the fix for it is super easy. You're just removing that struct reference and everything should work just fine. But I use that in a number of different places. And so I was a little bit surprised, I guess, to see that, oh, they're making this change.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it makes sense, but I feel like this will be one of those things that people will like see. They'll feel this. I think it's one of those things like OTP 28, right? The one that just came out. Change the way regexes can be compiled, and it's just those odd little moments like that where you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I do have those regexes as module attributes. That's compile time. That means I got to change something. Not a big change, just one of those noisy changes. And I think it's been common pattern for the community, maybe incorrectly, evidently, to update structs in this style. But with fresh eyes, you look at it and you're like, oh, you know what? I think I'm instantiating a brand new struct here. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, because I didn't really think about that before, because that variable you're passing in of URI, which is the struct, but you're also slapping that into a new struct that you're kind of creating right then and there with the new, path updated on it. Yeah, it makes sense. I get it. It's just one of those things. Yeah, it might be a little bit tedious. We'll find out, Yeah, that rounds out Elixir 1.19 news. There is more in the changelog. We'll have a link to the changelog. You can go figure out what's going to impact you the most, but I think it's largely a lot of little improvements here and there. Yeah, I'm excited. Their cadence is every 6 months, by the way, I think. So, in the summer and in the winter, we'll get new Elixir versions. All right, well, next up, ElixirConfEU videos have been releasing. So we got a link to the YouTube playlist that's got all that's released so far. As of time of recording, it includes all 4 keynotes and all of the lightning talks. One of those keynotes is José Valim's, always a good talk to catch up on. And what he's talking about this time is the type system and Elixir updates and an extended Q&A. Sometimes these videos don't include the Q&As. So it's pretty cool to see it in this video. And then always good to keep apprised of what is updating on the type system as well. Pretty much the note that Mark already mentioned, like the new compiler stuff that's in 1.19. But the talk will talk more about what's coming up and what's remaining.
Part of what he talks about in his keynote is the background of what we have right now and how we got to that point and why we needed to change it to get to the next point. So there's a lot more background, which is really helpful just to understand and appreciate what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm still holding out for that new type signature syntax.
Oh, yeah.
Once that lands, man, that's when it's going to feel different. Otherwise, it's just all compiler improvements so far. Well, I mean, it is, but it's all inferred things. I caught myself the other day, just writing @spec and, typing in stuff. I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm going to have to like delete it, in like 6 months or a year or something. And rewrite it all. Especially if you don't use dialyzer. So if you're not using dialyzer, what are you doing with yourself? Also about ElixirConfEU, there's another good talk out there. This one actually surprised me a bit. I didn't see this one coming, but this is about popcorn. And we'll talk more about popcorn soon enough, but this talk is about the Atom VM and new horizons for Elixir. So hidden in that title is popcorn. Popcorn is the library. We'll jump more into this a little bit later, but it is embedded Elixir in your JavaScripts. Stay tuned. We'll talk more.
Let me tell you a quick story about our partner, Honeybadger.io. One time, a customer of theirs had a background job running overnight that caused hundreds of thousands of errors to be reported to Honeybadger by mistake. Like many other error tracking and performance monitoring tools, Honeybadger bills for monthly usage. And so this customer's mistake was going to cost them a lot of extra money that month. If you've ever used a monitoring service, you might have experienced something like this. Well, fortunately for this customer, they emailed Honeybadger support and received the most amazing reply. Honeybadger was resetting their monthly quota and canceling the bill. This is just one example of how much the small team at Honeybadger cares about their users. Ask anyone you know, and you'll hear similar stories. Go check them out at honeybadger.io. It's free to get started, and setup takes less than 5 minutes. Don't forget to bookmark it. That's honeybadger.io.
All right, next up, LiveView Phoenix admin panel popped up on our radar, and it looks pretty good. I could have sworn we've talked about it like a while ago, like maybe when it first came out, but it's definitely evolved now. So what is it? It is called Backpex, P-E-X. Of course, you got to have that EX in there. It's an Elixir library. So Backpex is a highly customizable administration panel for Phoenix LiveView applications. So if you go to backpex.live, you'll find out a lot more info. It's got its own little landing page. And they even have a demo site, so you can kind of showcase what it looks like, explore if this is going to be a good fit for you. Lovely that it's built on LiveView. I'm still remembering old active admin days and Vietnam-style flashbacks here. But yeah, it looks good. It's built on good technology here. So if you're looking for something that can quickly spin up like an admin panel, you might look up Backpex. Not about Backpex, but if you're in the market for that, also check out Ash. Ash also has a lot of helpers for constructing these kinds of things. You declare your resources, and then you have an Ash admin package as well that can serve up similar kinds of things here. All pretty interesting. But anyway, so go check out backpex.live and see if that's a good fit for you.
Speaking of Ash, Zach Daniel did some little AI teases, and we wanted to kind of pass along. Zach shares that if you haven't checked out Ash AI yet, you should give it a try. There's a lot there. He spoke at ElixirConfEU, but currently his talk is not available yet. That'll be one you'll want to put on that wish list. And a fun thing to note is that the AI implementation in Ash is actually using the Elixir LangChain library to talk to the LLMs. That's my library, if you aren't familiar with it. Anyway, I guess I was just excited to see it being used there. It's like a
little Papa Bear pride. Yeah.
Yep, it's like my little claim to fame there. Yep. I'm in Ash, that's right.
All right, next up, there was an informal Elixir Contributors Summit that was held after ElixirConfEU in the Software Mansion's offices, which are also in Krakow, where ElixirConfEU was. And if you're feeling a little left out, don't worry, me too. They do have some notes. So Software Mansion wrote up some notes just reflecting upon the Elixir Contributor Summit. So we've got a link to those notes. Around 40 community contributors came, and they wrote up the blog posts and just highlighted what was exciting, what was notable, about the conversations and like the directions and all the things, that make Elixir great. And just for what it's worth, right? Software Mansion is also popping up a lot in our news, if you haven't noticed too. They've got the live debugger stuff. We're hinting at the popcorn thing. They spearheaded, the membrane thing for media streaming and processing. So they do hard stuff and they're contributing. So that's pretty awesome. So lovely to see those notes. Of course, it was hosted at their locations, but this was an Elixir Contributor Summit for, non-Software Mansion employees too. And I don't know if there's any promises for this, but that Elixir Contributor Summit was in the EU because, well, it was just convenient since everyone was meeting already. I want to say that there's probably going to be another one of those contributor summits in the US. We'll see. It'll be announced or not. We'll figure it out then. But if you're feeling left out and plane tickets are expensive, hold out. Maybe there's hope in the US.
And next up, Tyler Young shared his discovery of the Quokka GitHub project online. So Quokka, I'm just guessing that's how you'd say it. Maybe it's Wokka. I don't know. But what Tyler shared is, today I learned that SmartRent forked the Elixir Lang styler project to actually make it configurable. Quokka is the Credo, but just fix it for me that I've wanted for 6 years of doing Elixir. And that is honestly well said, right? There's Credo, which will tell you can customize it to have the rules for how the style should be. But sometimes you're just like, well, this is an easy one. Just fix it. Just do it for me. And so the folks at SmartRent said, that's important enough for us. That's what we want. So they did it personally for themselves. And then you can see with their SmartRent Quokka GitHub repo, which we've got a link to, that some of it was just, it sounds like it was extracted from another project and they're open sourcing it. That's about 2 months ago or so. So it's still quite new in terms of being public. So from the GitHub, this is what it says. Quokka is an Elixir formatter plugin that's a combination of mixed format and mixed Credo, except instead of telling you what's wrong, it just rewrites the code for you. Quokka is a fork of styler that checks the Credo config to determine which rules to rewrite. Many common non-controversial Credo rules are rewritten automatically, while the controversial Credo rules are rewritten based on your Credo configuration so you can customize your style. That's neat.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, so you want to check it out before you run it. The GitHub README includes some tips that are worth checking out. Things like make a first pass where it only fixes new lines in white space, no code changes to make all the subsequent PRs and things much cleaner, things like that.
Make a first pass where it only fixes new lines and spacing. Wouldn't mixed format change that for you?
But maybe you have custom rules about how you want it to be done.
Yeah, I want my Mac to have Windows style line endings. Yeah, really confuse everybody. Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking about like Credo. Credo's been around for a long time, way before. And I don't know this for with certainty. I'd have to go check it out. But Credo was there before Elixir had a lot of like improvements made to its core on dealing with like code fragments. The LSP kind of like improvements, the ability to like rewrite things. Is I think compilation tracers weren't really there at the time. So like there's probably a lot here that could be improved. Just in Credo. So yeah, pretty cool that Quokka offers that backwards compatibility too. It'll pick up your Credo config. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was a lot of effort. There must have been a lot of effort.
They must have been very opinionated in wanting it to do it for them.
All right, next up. Before I was hinting at Atom VM and the thing called Popcorn. So now we're going to talk about Popcorn. Popcorn is a browser-based Elixir implementation output by Software Mansion. So it is a library that allows you to run client-side Elixir in browsers. So you've been jealous of Gleam because it can compile to JavaScript. Now you cannot be so jealous. You're still missing your types though, at least for a little while. So yeah, it includes JavaScript's operability, and I bet there is an asterisk on there because. So how this is kind of working is that it's based on Atom VM. So what is Atom VM? It is a re-implementation of the Beam, but tiny, atom size, you might say. And Atom VM is designed for, well, small little systems, right? One of the targets of Atom VM is the Raspberry Pi Pico, Another one of the targets is WebAssembly, and this is where Popcorn comes in. So Popcorn is using Atom VM compiled to WASM to give you that browser, accessibility here, or that browser access here. They have a pretty nice site where you can kind of like use it as a playground, right? So we got a link in the show notes to Elixir in the browser, which is pretty nice, right? So if you're looking for that REPL and I don't have Elixir installed, well, no problem. Go to, popcorn.softwaremansion.com or swmansion.com/simple_REPL will give you a little REPL, and it will also work in Erlang. So yeah, you can IO puts hello all day in there, and it's not running on your computer. Well, I guess technically it is just in your browser. It's running on your browser, not in your local installation of Elixir. Pretty neato. All right, so why is there an asterisk on there on JavaScript interoperability? This is my limited understanding, but when you're in WASM, sure, there are escape hatches into JavaScript's, land, but WASM is quite sandboxed in a unique way, right? It is a worker thread, in an iframe, somewhere else, I think. Maybe not as conventional as you might be used to in typical like React applications where I can just call, like a bunch of window dot functions, from here. Or maybe you can, I'm not sure. But that is, that is Popcorn. That seems pretty exciting. Gives me some flashbacks to Lumen/Firefly efforts back in the day. You remember that? You know what I'm talking about?
That's right.
Yeah.
We were talking about Lumen.
Lumen was renamed to Firefly, I think. Yeah. Where it was a Rust implementation of Elixir, of the Beam rather, so that it can be portable in the same way that Atom VM here seems to have achieved. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So we're curious of where intersections were.
I think one of the big differences with Atom VM is it tried to tackle less than Lumen. Yeah, so it's keeping it a little bit more focused, made it so they could deliver on use cases that they wanted to accomplish. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
And last up, there's a new community tool or resource that's available called Elixir Observer. It's produced by the folks at Mimiquate. So note, this is not to be confused with the OTP Observer that's built into the Beam. The OTP Observer is all about getting insights into the Beam's running state. its active processes, what's being done right now, being able to peek into processes, kill processes, all that kind of stuff. This project, Elixir Observer, is about getting insights into the hex packages that are available in the community. There's a blog post that announces it. There's a YouTube video that demos it. And you can check it out on elixir-observer.com, which is the website where you can play with it. Something easy to jump into right now. In the show notes, I've got a link to Elixir Observer inspecting the Ecto package. So that's an example of just what this might look like. So what's nice is it's not telling you, oh, this is a good package or this is a bad package. It's not making any judgment calls, but what it is doing is pulling a lot of information together. So it's pulling information from the GitHub project, from the hex package on hex PM, exposing a lot of information like what is the PR activity on this project? What are the issues activities on the project? What are the download counts? What are the GitHub stars? What are all these things together? So when you're thinking about and evaluating maybe a couple different packages to try and solve some problem for you, now you have a tool that just does a lot of that legwork of looking up all the pieces. Is this currently maintained? How old is this? Are other people using this? Just helping to pull out all that information together. So I think that's really cool for that reason. Also, the Elixir Observer project is itself open source, and there's a GitHub repo. We've got a link for that. I would say it's not 100%, and they are inviting people to contribute, because when you look at something like Ecto or other packages, it seems to say that none of them have a changelog. They do have a changelog, but it's not picking that up. Something about how it's looking for that isn't matching. Things like that. So you wouldn't want to trust this 100% for all things. Maybe not yet, right? But it's getting there. But it does some really cool stuff. Like if I pull on this package, it shows me what are the dependencies. You know, I can go inspect the GitHub repo, look at the mixexs and see what dependencies it's pulling in. But this just surfaces all that. It says, oh, these are the dependencies. Here are the optional dependencies. That is just doing a lot of that investigative work for you. It's very nice.
For what it's worth, though, HexPM does show you dependencies as well. So that's not a new thing here. But the styling of Elixir Observer is I don't know, my opinion, cleaner, more informative. You know, I wonder if the name is inspired by like Observer as in like a newspaper, right? Like yeah. Anyway. And yeah, you're right. I'm looking at Ecto and there's no changelog on Elixir Observer, but there is certainly a changelog, there. It's just in GitHub. So if I looked at my package, Phoenix SEO, I listed the changelog as like a published file along, with the package as well. And I listed in the package metadata, and it sees the changelog.
So it's not looking at the files in the repo, it's looking for hex saying this is the changelog.
Yeah, but the link in Elixir Observer is to GitHub. So I don't remember what I did with Phoenix SEO, but evidently I did the right thing and I pointed it to the right file. It is pretty cool. So yeah, if I could rephrase, right, Elixir Observer is hex PM with GitHub metadata sprinkled on top.
Yeah.
So yeah, issues, pull requests, activity, GitHub stars, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, a lot of the same stuff that's also on hex PM, just displayed a little differently. Pretty nice.
Well, David, we're glad to have you back. We missed you last week.
Yeah, what a week.
Appreciate Dave Lucia joining us last week. If you haven't listened to that episode, go check that one out.
Love you, Dave.
But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us next time on Thinking Elixir.